Hello, Mishpacha, it's Courtney, America's Jewish mother. Welcome back to my channel. It's Friday, so that means it's time for a Friday Reads video, and this week I finished 4 books. I'm currently reading 6 books, and one of the books I finished was Emerson! So let's go. So, I finished Emerson! I'm so excited because I started this book in May, and it took me until November to finish because it is about 850 pages long. And Emerson is quite dense, and his language is poetic, but he's also very philosophical, and sometimes he'll make references to other texts that you may or may not be familiar with. So I find that I can't really read more than about, sorry, she just shook. Can't really read more than about 20 pages of Emerson at a time or so, so that's why it took me so long to get through this, but I'm so glad that I finally did. So I ended up giving the whole collection 4 stars. I didn't love all of the selections. I think there were better chapters that could have been included from the volume Representative Men. There were other poems that could have been included, and then there's a fairly lengthy volume included in this collection called English Traits, and that was to me quite boring. The only good part of it was in the beginning when Emerson visits the poet William Wordsworth in 1830 something, and Wordsworth basically predicts the American Civil War. So that was the most exciting part of the whole thing, and it happens in, I'm pretty sure, the first chapter of that. But I really liked most of the first and second series essays. I think if you are looking for kind of quintessential Ralph Waldo Emerson, I would certainly suggest The American Scholar. His essay Self-Reliance is also pretty classic Emerson. I also really liked the address in here that he gave on the fugitive slave law. He gave 2 addresses on that, and I think the one that's in here was the second address. Let me check just to be sure. Yes, it's the second address. It says, this is one of 2 addresses on the same subject by Emerson. He gave the first in Concord in May of 1851. The second address, which follows, he delivered in New York City in March of 1854. So I quite liked that, and I also really liked, there's a eulogy in here that he gave for Henry David Thoreau upon Thoreau's death, and that was really beautiful and actually got me a little teary-eyed at the end. So yeah, if you're just kind of looking to pick and choose a couple of classic Emerson texts, I would recommend those. You also could read Nature, which is also a very classic, quintessentially Emersonian text, but I feel like the 4 essays I mentioned, The American Scholar, Self-Reliance, The Fugitive Slave Law Address, and Thoreau maybe give you like a wider sense of who Emerson was as a writer than Nature by itself. So yeah, I'm really glad I read this. I'm so happy to be done with it, even though I'm glad that I read it. And the other thing I'll say about Emerson is he truly is the quintessential American writer. I mean, like, if you want to understand the American ethos, you should read Emerson. Because he really does embody the spirit of what I feel like makes America, America, if that made any sense at all. But yeah, if you want to understand the American ethos, you should read Emerson. So really glad to finish this 4 stars. And yes, I will accept all congratulations down in the comments below. Anyway, moving on. So I also this week finished my reread of Kindred by Octavia Butler. I reread this because I was teaching it in African American Lit this semester, and it had been 2 years since I had previously taught this or read it. So I wanted to reread it along with the students, and we finished up our discussion of it today. And I really enjoyed my reread of this. I continue to think that it's quite smart in its depiction of the dynamics of relationship between Black women and white men. And yeah, I feel like this is a book that has something for almost every reader. It doesn't have beautiful language. That's probably like the one area that it's lacking in. But aside from that, I think it's smart, it's entertaining, it's fast-paced, you want to know what happens. And the characters are interesting. So yeah, 4 stars. Would definitely recommend this if you've never read Octavia Butler before. Also, if you've never read Octavia Butler before, hi, welcome to BookTube. So anyway, so 4 stars. And then I finished A Ladder to the Sky by John Boyne. This was the winner of the inaugural BookTube prize in 2019, I believe. And I didn't end up liking this as much as everyone else seems to, so I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. I was largely entertained by the story of Maurice Swift, who basically steals other people's stories as a way to become a famous writer himself. But I had 2 major problems with the book. One was that it's divided into 3 parts and then 2 interludes, and all of those are told from different narrative perspectives, and that I found jarring and annoying, because it was like just when I had kind of like gotten used to one narrator and I was like in the flow of the story or whatever, then we'd switch to something else and I was irked by that. And then I felt like I had to, reconnect to a new narrative style, and I didn't really like that. So that was my one issue. My second issue is the middle part of this book is supposedly narrated from the perspective of a black woman, and you could blink and miss the fact that this narrator is supposed to be black, honestly. And I just feel like if you can't convincingly write a black female character, like, don't have a black female character narrate a section of your book. I mean, in all honesty, there's very little difference between the narrative style of Edith versus the narrative style of this, like, older gay white dude at the beginning of the book. And that should not be the case. These should feel like very different characters with very different styles, and I did not find that to be the case. So yeah, I just feel like John Boyne certainly does not know how to write black women characters, at least not in a way that that is believable. I mean, there's almost no address made of race whatsoever, and I don't think that that's realistic, especially for a black woman who's teaching a creative writing class, or teaching any kind of class, really. I mean, I've had several black women colleagues in my day, and, all of them kind of have things to say about the way that, they're treated by students at majority white institutions, and I just feel like there's no way that the students would all be as, accepting of Edith as they allegedly are here. And there's no way that, like, she wouldn't have any sort of ruminations on the ways in which her race is influencing the way that the students perceive her versus the way they perceive Maurice, or, other students in the class, etc., etc. So, yeah, that part I just didn't find believable at all. But I was entertained overall, so that is why I ended up giving this 3.5 stars. And, I mean, yeah, like, take my opinion with a grain of salt, because, again, this did win the inaugural BookTube prize, and most people liked it quite a bit. So if you're not annoyed by sort of interruptions in narrative style, and then, having a different narrator take over and stuff, if you're not annoyed by that, then you'll probably be entertained by this more than I was. So 3.5 stars. And then the last book I finished this week was Her Again, Becoming Meryl Streep by Michael Schulman. This is a biography of Meryl Streep's early years, so from her childhood and high school days up through her time at Vassar and the Yale School of Drama, and then her early theater roles up through her first several movie roles, and it ends with her winning her first Oscar for Best Supporting Actress in Kramer vs. Kramer, which was in 1980, I believe. So covers her early life. The author does a lot of interviews with people who knew her, or worked with her, or dated her, etc., etc. And you definitely get an interesting picture of her relationship with her high school boyfriend, Mike Booth, and how they sort of became They just sort of went in two different directions from each other. And then you also get a really good picture of her relationship to actor John Cazale, who passed away of, I think it was some kind of cancer. I don't remember now. It was some kind of cancer. And she, like, nursed him until, you know, the end of his life. And then, basically, like, 6 months later, she got married to Don Gummer, a sculptor who she's still married to this day. So I felt like it was a really good picture of her early life. Now, there's no real direct interviews with her included in this book, I will say, but I do feel like it gives you a good sense of her environment in all of those different periods of her early life and career. So I appreciated that element of it, and it's much better than other Meryl Streep biographies that I've read where they just like rehash every single one of her film roles and that's it. So I liked it overall, would recommend it if you're into biographies or if you're a fan of Meryl Streep. 4 stars. So that is everything that I finished this week. In terms of what I'm currently reading, I am reading 6 books right now, but 2 of them are part of a secret project that I'm not going to reveal right now. I will reveal the secret project later on, but for now, nothing about nothing about 2 secret books I'm currently reading. I also this week started Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart. I'm only a few pages into this, so I have no substantive thoughts on it yet. But more to come as far as that's concerned. I also started for Indigithon this anthology of Native Nations poetry, edited by Joy Harjo, called When the Light of the World Was Subdued, Our Songs Came Through. So I'm about 50 pages into this, so far I've read the introduction, and then it's divided into sections by region, and then within each regional section it goes chronologically from earlier figures up to more contemporary poets. So right now I'm still in the, I think it's Northeast and Midwest section, so I'm about 50 pages into this, and there is also a briefer introduction before each regional section to tell you more about it. So I'm enjoying this so far, and I imagine I will not make it to the end of this book by the end of this month, but that's okay. I kind of planned for that. So if I continue this into December, that's fine. I'm cool with that, but I am enjoying it so far. And then I'm also currently engaged in 2 buddy reads. One is of Hannah Arendt's Eichmann in Jerusalem with BookTube commenter extraordinaire Stephanie Cohen. So we've done 1 check-in about this so far, so we're, I think, about a quarter of the way through it. Maybe slightly less than that. But, yeah, so I said last week that I had some issues with this book, so in the first chapter, when Hannah Arendt is kind of doing some scene setting of the trial and describing various figures who are involved in the trial, the judges, the defense attorney, the prosecutor, and other people who are involved in it, she just has this very sort of flippant tone that I felt like was not appropriate for this, like, the severity of what was happening, and the fact that Eichmann is on trial for the Holocaust, you know? So that definitely kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I did feel like when she got onto the second chapter, and from then on about details of Eichmann's life and how he became involved in the Nazi Party and his rise within the ranks, I felt like she became less flippant then, so I found it easier to read since the first chapter. But yeah, so we'll see how it goes. So that's still happening, and then I'm also currently reading the Moor's Account by Laila Lalami with Melissa, fully booked, and I'm about a quarter of the way into this right now. I'm actually really enjoying this so far. I think it's a little slow going because it's written in the style of an old-timey travelogue, because the main character here, Mustafa Al-Zamouri, aka Estebanico, is the first African explorer in the New World of the United States, or of the Americas, whatever, because he's a slave on this expedition with all these Spaniards. And so anyway, so they're in Florida, and they've already met some Native Americans and taken some of them hostage and tortured them for information and stuff. And they're en route to what they believe is like a sort of El Dorado type city of gold called Appalach, I think. Not Appalachia, just Appalach or Appalach. So we'll see if they actually find any gold there. Or even get there. I'm kind of dubious about that. But I am quite enjoying this so far. It sort of alternates between Estevanico / Mustafa talking about the current day travels versus how he came to slavery in the first place. So he also has some narration about his early life and family and what that was like before he became enslaved and went on this Spanish voyage. So yeah, I'm actually surprisingly enjoying this, even though, like I said, it is a bit slow going because it's written like an old-timey travelogue, like The Interesting Life of Olaudah Equiano or something like that. So anyway, so that's everything that I've finished this week or am currently reading. I would love to hear your thoughts about any of these books. Please feel free to let me know that down in the comments below. Thank you for watching this. Let me know what you've been reading and enjoying lately. I hope everyone is staying healthy and well. I hope you're doing good reading whatever you're reading. And until next time, would it kill you to call you mother?